The book of Genesis describes God's creative work in relation to the earth. We want to understand this book, yet it often raises more questions than it gives answers. Have you ever really read Genesis? Can you say with certainty what God created first when you read the opening verse? Did He create the entire universe with millions of galaxies and our planet Earth? Or did He create the Earth's atmosphere, calling it the heavens, and then form dry land and call it earth? How can light appear on the first day if the source of light is created only on the fourth day? When you read Genesis chapter 1, did you notice that God brings light into existence, but darkness already exists beforehand? He creates the day, but He does not create the night. Light is called day, and darkness is called night. So why does God say that the light is good? Does that mean the day is good, but darkness, or what God calls night, is bad? In this video, we are not trying to attack the Creator, and by the end, you'll understand why. The fact that there are questions about the book of Genesis is not a problem with God as Creator. The problem lies elsewhere. So, let's begin. The opening words of Scripture say, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." According to linguistic scholars, the grammatical structure of this sentence allows it to be understood as inseparably connected to the verses that follow. The opening of Genesis can be read like this: "When God began to create the heavens and the earth was formless and empty, then God said, 'Let there be light.'" Why does this matter? Because if we treat Genesis 1:1 as a complete standalone sentence, it can be interpreted to mean that God instantly created the vast universe, the heavens, and the planet Earth. But the text itself is actually explaining how the heavens and the earth came into being. In other words, the opening verses describe the process of creation. They can be understood like this: "This is how God created the heavens and the earth. At that time, the earth was empty and covered in darkness. God then turned on the light. After that, He created the firmament, which separated the waters, and He called this firmament the heavens." This is the heavens mentioned in Genesis 1:1. Later, when God causes dry land to emerge from the waters, He calls that dry land earth. This is the earth also mentioned in the very first verse. So what exactly are the heavens according to Genesis chapter 1? We read, "And God said, 'Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters.' And God made the firmament, and separated the waters that were under the firmament from the waters that were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And there was evening, and there was morning the second day." Genesis 1:6-8. The Hebrew word rakia, translated as firmament, literally means something spread out, a vault, or a solid surface. Its root conveys the idea of hammering or flattening, like a blacksmith pounding metal into a sheet. Ancient people imagined the sky as a solid, durable dome separating waters above from waters below. Other biblical passages confirm this idea. Job 37:18. "Can you, like him, spread out the skies, hard as a cast metal mirror?" Here, the heavens are explicitly compared to a metallic mirror, clearly emphasizing physical solidity. Ezekiel 1:22-26. "Above the heads of the living creatures was the likeness of a firmament, shining like awe-inspiring crystal, spread out above their heads. And above the firmament was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like sapphire stone." In Ezekiel's vision, the firmament is a solid, crystalline platform, and God's throne stands upon it, again highlighting hardness and structure. So what is the earth? Genesis 1:9-10 says, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters He called seas." So in Genesis, earth means dry land. All right, now we have the heavens and the earth. But let's return to the first day. On that day, God somehow, miraculously, turns on the light. Genesis 1:3-5 says, And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. This is astonishing. There is light, there is day and night, but there are no celestial bodies yet, no sun, no moon. How can there be day and night without a sun? The sun, moon, and stars appear only on the fourth day. And God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. Genesis 1:16-18. Here's another detail many people overlook. The stars are created on the fourth day as well, and like the sun and moon, they are placed in the firmament. This reinforces the idea that Genesis 1:1 is not describing the creation of the universe as we understand it today. Instead, the stars, sun, and moon are portrayed as small lights attached to a solid sky dome, according to the worldview of the author. Now things get even more fascinating on the third day. This is the day when there is still no sun, no moon, and no stars. Yet we read, "Let the earth bring forth vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit. And the earth brought forth vegetation, and God saw that it was good." Genesis 1:11-13. What's strange here? Plants need sunlight, not just light, but light of a specific spectral quality. They need a stable, properly calibrated source of light, our sun. But the sun doesn't exist yet. It won't be created until the fourth day. You might say, no problem, they can wait until then. But how can they wait if one day of creation could last 1,000 years, as stated in 2 Peter 3:8? So how would plants survive without sunlight for that long? If you have answers to these questions, write them in the comments. So why does the author of Genesis appear to contradict well-known scientific facts? Here's why. Most modern biblical scholars agree that the opening chapters of Genesis were not written by a single author at a single point in time. Linguistic analysis, stylistic patterns, repetitions, and theological emphases show that the text developed gradually from multiple ancient traditions. Early creation stories existed orally for generations before being written down, edited, and compiled. Most scholars date the final form of Genesis to the period during or shortly after the Babylonian exile in the 6th to 5th centuries BCE. The early chapters of Genesis clearly reflect ancient Near Eastern views of the world, found in Mesopotamian and regional texts such as the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Gilgamesh, as well as Sumerian and Egyptian creation myths. Shared themes include primordial waters, the transition from chaos to order, the emergence of dry land, and the story of a global flood. However, the biblical text intentionally reinterprets these ideas through a monotheistic lens, presenting one creator and emphasizing humanity's moral responsibility before God. So what conclusion can we draw? If Genesis is merely a reworked version of Sumerian and Babylonian myths, then God as creator has nothing to do with it, and we would have to admit that Genesis is not divinely inspired. But that would contradict the belief that God is a God of truth. On the other hand, if ancient civilizations did possess fragments of truth and express them through myth, then Genesis may preserve divine revelation, but expressed through an ancient worldview. That would mean accepting a flat earth covered by a solid dome with the sun, moon, and stars attached to it. So what should we believe? Perhaps the answer is humility. Accepting that we do not yet know everything, without losing faith in the Creator. And perhaps Scripture was never meant to be a textbook on physics, chemistry, or astronomy, but a sacred narrative meant to guide us spiritually, shape our character, and help us place our hope in God.